Hey guys, and welcome to the Command Tower. We make EDH Deck Techs. If you enjoy these videos, make sure to like and subscribe. Also, check out our TCGPlayer, fill the link in the description below, and if you use it, it helps out a lot. Today's deck is a Glacian and Rebbec deck. Glacian is a 3/6 that has tap, and then tap X untapped artifacts you control. Look at the top X cards in your library. Put one of those cards into your hand, and the rest into your graveyard. Then Rebbec is the 3/4 that has artifacts you control have protection from each converted mana cost among artifacts you control. So, the plan for this deck is to play a lot of artifacts or play cards that make a lot of tiny artifacts. Then, we can either tap them with Glacian or play cards that benefit off of having artifacts. And then when we're tapping Glacian, we're going to be putting cards into our graveyard, and then we're going to play some cards that benefit off of that. Total price of this deck is $34.54. This is according to TCGPlayer. Does not include the price of basic lands. So let's get right into the deck. First off, we got ramp. Since it's an artifact deck, we're going to have all artifact ramp. Silver Mirror taps for blue, Gold Mirror taps for white, Palladium Mirror taps for 2 colorless, Commander Sphere taps for 1 mana of color, then you can sacrifice it to draw a card, and Milliken taps to put the top card of your library into your graveyard, and you get a colorless mana. Burnished Heart, you pay 3, sacrifice it, search your library for 2 basic land cards, and put them on the battlefield tab to shuffle your library. All of these are great because they're going to be putting cards into our graveyards, and we have a lot of cards that can bring those cards back. Joyous Familiar, his flying and historic spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Foundry Inspector, artifact spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Ethereum Sculptor is the same thing. And then Scare Tiller, which is a great card for the deck, because whenever it becomes tapped, you can either put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped, or return target land card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So, we can tap this with our commander, and then we could either ramp from our hand, or ramp from our graveyard, which will probably have lands in our graveyard. Well, if we don't have our commander, we can just attack with it. So it's a great card overall. Then we got some cards that are going to help us constantly make more artifacts. Thopter Spy Network. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control an artifact, you create a 1/1 colorless Thopter. And then, whenever one or more artifacts you control deals combat damage to a player, you get to draw a card. Which is great because making artifacts and drawing cards for only 4 mana is pretty good. Efficient Construction. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token. Sharding Sphinx. Flying. Whenever the artifact creature you control deals combat damage to a player, create a 1/1 Thopter. All of these are great because they're just going to keep making Thopters, and then we can either attack with them, because people probably won't have flyings, or you can just tap them with our commander. Doomed Artisan. Sculptures you control can't attack or block. At the beginning of your end step, create a colorless sculpture artifact creature token with this creature's power and toughness or equal number of sculptures you control. This is great because this can make a bunch of sculptures, and then we can just tap them with our commander. But if this guy ever dies, then our sculptures can attack and block. Mirror Battlesphere. When it enters battlefield, create 4 1/1 colorless mirror artifact creature tokens. When it attacks, you can tap X untap the mirror you control. If you do, it gets plus X plus 0 on a turn, and it deals X damage to the player or planeswalkers attacking. So, we can either tap our mirror to make this bigger, or we can tap our mirror with our commander. Golem Foundry. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, put a charge counter on it, and then you can remove 3 charge counters to make a 3/3. Mirrored and Prestige. A great card in the deck. When it enters the battlefield, you choose Mirren or Phyrexian. Mirren is whenever you cast an artifact spell, create a 1/1 colorless mirror artifact creature token. Then Phyrexian is probably the better of the two. At the beginning of your end step, draw a card, then discard a card. Then if there are 15 more artifact cards in your graveyard, target opponent loses the game. So with Glacian, we'll be putting a lot of cards into our graveyard, so we'll be getting a lot of artifacts into our graveyard. So there's a good chance we could win off of that. Then Prototype Portal has imprint. When it enters the battlefield, you can exile an artifact card from your hand. If you pay X and tap it, create a token that's a copy of the exiled card, or X is the card of mana cost of that card. So we can just keep playing some of the best cards in our deck. Then we got some cards that work off us having a lot of artifacts. Darksteel Juggernaut has Indestructible, and its power and toughness are equal to the number of artifacts you control. Attacks each combat of Fable. So it's going to be really hard to kill, and it becomes really big if you keep playing artifacts. Shambling Suit. Its power is equal to the number of artifacts and or enchantments you control, so it should be pretty big. Then Master of Ethereum. Its power and toughness are equal to the number of artifacts you control, and then other artifact creatures you control get +1/+1, which is pretty great because if you have a lot of Thopters out, even getting them +1/+1 can make them deal a lot of extra damage. Tempered Steel is kind of similar. Artifacts creatures you control get +2/+2, which is even better. Wonder has Flying. As long as it's in your graveyard and you control an island, creatures you control have Flying. So, with our commander, we're tapping our artifacts, and if we see this off the top of our library, we can just put it into our graveyard. And then, all our creatures are probably going to have Flying. Leonin Abunas, artifacts you control have Hexproof, so this is protect your artifacts, and our commander, Rebbec, is also going to protect them too. Shimmermere has Flash, and you can cast artifact spells as they had Flash. Steel Overseer, you can tap to put a 1 counter on each artifact creature you control, which once again is really good if we have a bunch of them. Traxos, Scourge of Krug, has Trample, and it enters battlefield tapped and doesn't untap during your untap step. Then, whenever you cast a historic spell, you untap it. Antiquities War, it's a saga. The first 2 parts are, look at the top 5 cards of your library, reveal an artifact card from among them and put it in your hand, and put the rest on the bottom of your library, so it's going to help get you more artifacts. But the best part is, artifacts you control become artifact creatures with base power and toughness 5/5 until end of turn. So, if we get a bunch of tiny artifacts out, we can swing for a lot of damage. Mirror Works, whenever another non-token artifact enters battlefield under your control, you can pay 2, and if you do, create a token that's a copy of that artifact. So, you can just copy some of our best artifacts. Metalwork Colossus. It costs X less to cast, where X is the total converted mana cost of non-creature artifacts you control. Then you can sacrifice 2 artifacts to return it from your graveyard or hand. So, hopefully we're going to play it for pretty cheap, and then, if it dies, we can bring it back. Or, if we put it into our graveyard with Glacian, we can also bring it back. And then, Diligent Excavator. Whenever you cast a historic spell, target player puts his top 2 cards of the library into their graveyard. So, whenever casting our artifacts, we're probably going to mill ourselves, so we can get better cards in our graveyard so we can bring them back later. Then we've got some cards that can either return the cards we put into our graveyard back to the battlefield or our hand. Argivian Vine, return target artifact or enchantment card from your graveyard or hand, which is pretty good for 1 mana. Mirror Retriever, when it dies, return another target artifact card from your graveyard or hand. And Workshop Assistant is the same thing. Remember the Fallen, choose 1 or both. Return target creature card from your graveyard or hand, or return target artifact card from your graveyard or hand. Refurbish, return target artifact card from your graveyard to the battlefield. And Daring Archaeologist, when he enters the battlefield, you can return target artifact card from your graveyard or hand, and then also, whenever you cast a historic spell, put a 1 counter on him, so it'll keep getting bigger. Dance of the Manse, return up to X target artifact and or non-aura enchantment cards, each with a confirmed mana cost X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. If X is 6 or more, those permanents are 4/4 creatures in addition to the other types. So, we're going to get a bunch of artifacts back. Also, they're going to be creatures that we can attack with. Roar of Reclamation, each player returns all artifact cards from his graveyard to play. Then open the vaults. Return all artifact and enchantment cards from all graveyards to the battlefield under their owner's control. So, both of those should benefit us more than anyone else, unless they're playing graveyard decks. Tashar, Ancestor's Apostle, has Flying. Whenever you cast a historic spell, return target creature card with the current mana cost 3 or less from a graveyard to the battlefield. So, you're always going to be casting historic spells, so if there's any small creatures in your graveyard, you're going to get them back. Emery, Lurk of the Loch, which is a great card for the deck. Spell costs 1 less to cast for each artifact you control. When it enters the battlefield, you put the top 4 cards of your library into your graveyard. And then, you can tap, choose a target artifact in your graveyard, and you can cast that card this turn. So, you can keep casting artifacts, 1 per turn. And then Hannah, Ship's Navigator. You can pay 3, tap it, return target artifact or enchantment card from your graveyard to your hand. Which is pretty good, because we can just keep doing that every turn to get our best artifacts back. Though we've got some card advantage, but since we have all the cards in the last category, we're not going to need too much. Shimmer Dragon, flying as long as you control 4 more artifacts, has hexproof. If you tap 2 untapped artifacts you control, you get to draw a card. Riddlesmith, whenever you cast an artifact spell, you can draw a card, and then if you do, you discard a card. Pedantic Learning, whenever a land card is put into your graveyard in your library, you can pay 1 if you do draw a card. This is great with our commander, because we're going to tap our artifacts, and we're going to be putting a lot of lands into our graveyard with him. Then we can play it, pay a lot of mana, and draw a lot of cards off it. Deep Analysis, target player draws 2 cards, which may not seem too good, but has flashback for 2, and you pay 3 life. So if we put this into our graveyard with our commander, we can always play it. Factor Fission, reveal the top 5 cards of your library. Your opponent separates those cards into 2 piles. Put 1 pile in your hand and the other pile into the graveyard. Key to the City, you can tap it, discard a card. Up to 1 target creature can't be blocked this turn. When it becomes untapped, you can pay 2 to draw a card. So, you can either use it to make a creature unblockable, or you can tap it with your commander, and when it becomes untapped, you can pay 2 to draw a card. Trading Post, you can pay 1, tap it, discard a card you gain for a life. Pay 1, tap it, pay 1 life, create a 0/1 white go creature token. Pay 1, sacrifice a creature. Return target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. Pay 1, tap it, sacrifice artifact, draw a card. And you're probably going to do one of the bottom 2, so you can get more cards back to your hand. And then, Tamiel's Journal. At the beginning of your upkeep, you investigate. Then you tap it, sacrifice 2 clues, search the library for a card, put that card into your hand, then shuffle your library. This is great, because it can be a tutor, it can draw us cards, or, if we don't do either of those, we can just tap the clue tokens with our commander. Then we've got some removal. Dusk to Dawn. Dusk is destroy all creatures power 3 or greater, and Dawn has Aftermath, and return all creatures cards with power 2 or less from your graveyard to your hand. So, it's going to be a board wipe, and then we can bring our creatures back, or, if we mill that into our graveyard, we can just bring all our creatures back, or most of them. The Vinaral's Disc, enters battlefield tapped. You can pay 1, tap it, destroy all artifacts, creatures, and enchantments. Divine Reckoning, each player chooses a creature they control, and you destroy the rest. The good part about this is it's flashback, so once again, if it's in your graveyard, you can cast it. Stoic Rebuttal, has Metalcraft, costs 1 less to cast if you control 3 or more artifacts, and you counter a spell. Override, counter target spell unless the controller pays 1 for each artifact you control. Dispeller's Capsule, you pay 3, tap it, sacrifice it, destroy target artifact or enchantment. Return to Dust, you exile target artifact or enchantment. If you cast a spell during your main phase, you can exile up to 1 other target artifact or enchantment. Raven Form, exile target artifact or creature. This controller creates a 1/1 blue bird creature token with flying. Then has Foretell for a blue. And then Farm to Market. Farm is destroy target attacking blocking creature, or Market has Aftermath, and you draw 2 cards and discard 2 cards. And once again, if it's in your graveyard, we can play the second half, which will be pretty good. And then Meteor Goal. When it enters the battlefield, destroy target non-land permanent your opponent controls. Then lastly, we've got some lands. Azorius Guildgate enters battlefield tapped. It taps our Azorius colors. Meandering River is the same thing. Sahiri Refuge is the same thing, but you gain a life. And Tranquil Grove is the same thing as that. Azorius Chancery enters battlefield tapped. When it enters battlefield, you return a land you control to its owner's hand, and it taps for both the Azorius colors. Command Tower taps for 1 mana of each color. Darksteel Citadel is indestructible, and it taps for colors, but it's also an artifact, so that's going to help. Buried Ruin taps for colors, or you can pay 2, tap it, sacrifice it, return target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. Haunted Fendergraph taps for colors, and then once again, pay 3, tap it, sacrifice it, but this time, you get to return a creature card at random from your graveyard to your hand. And then, we're just going to have 14 planes and 14 islands. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe, and have a great day.